Here we go.
Hello. So today on the OCD Whisperer Podcast, I have India Haylor. So she is the director and founder of OCD Excellence in the UK. For anybody out there who's international, OCD Excellence has 5 therapists who all work and specialize in OCD. And India also herself has been working with OCD for 20 years and has OCD. So there's nothing more amazing, of course, when I have somebody in front of me I get to interview who both has OCD and specializes in OCD. So thank you so much, India, for coming on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's great to meet you online, Christina.
Absolutely. So for today, I wanted to cover a topic that I think is pretty important, just like in a lot of topics in OCD, but I'm sure we can agree that there are probably a couple of kind of issues with OCD that are more commonly known. And there's a whole world of OCD that is still not quite understood or known. So one of the topics today that I want to talk about is postpartum OCD. So for the audience listening, can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the common kind of symptoms or signs of postpartum OCD? Like, how would you know what that looks like when that maybe shows up for somebody?
Right, good question. So prepartum or postpartum, or sometimes here in the UK, we call it perinatal OCD. So what that means is it could be during pregnancy and after childbirth, and actually for up to 12 months afterwards. So that might manifest as intrusive thoughts. And the thoughts do tend to take a common theme. So what we tend to see with postpartum, prepartum OCD, generally the thoughts revolve around responsibility, a level of inflated, heightened responsibility, which would be natural during pregnancy and childbirth, of course. But I just want to distinguish it's not an elevated sense. It's a sense of responsibility gone mad. So there's a constant obsession about intrusive thoughts about perhaps harming the baby, about contaminating the baby in some way, about just doing something that's very irresponsible. And then there may also be some intrusive thoughts that revolve around getting things exactly right. So those would be what we call obsessions. So we split OCD into obsessions and compulsions. Obsessions are mental, and the compulsions are the things people do to try and relieve the discomfort of the intrusive mental thoughts. But those obsessions can be mental as well, confusingly. So what a female, clients of ours who've experienced this, they will tend to have compulsions around cleaning, and that's a big one. So that tends to be sort of 30 to 50% of the symptoms that we see. And then they will have other checking, and those checking compulsions might be around making sure that they haven't done something wrong, making sure that they haven't eaten something that might harm the baby, or once the baby's born, that they haven't dropped them, that they haven't contaminated them, that they haven't harmed them in any way, that they're still breathing, that there's no dangerous substances in the room or items. And then there might be other things. There definitely a small percentage will be things like neatness, thoroughness, ordering and arranging things in a certain way. So those are the compulsions. Those are the symptoms we tend to see. And I just want to make no mistake about this. It would be highly distressing to the person. It wouldn't be a sense of, well, I'm kind of a bit worried about this. It would be, I'm very worried about this, and I'm doing things a lot.
Got it. And so what would be a reason, because I often also hear this commonly asked myself when I'm treating some clients with this presentation, questions like why me, or why now, or how did I get this? Would you have any kind of insight, or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. So this is the big one. So firstly, I can say that it's no one's fault. So I think a lot of mums or mums to be get very, they get very, very distressed thinking they've done something wrong. So it's nothing that they or their partner have done. So I just want to make that really clear. And so we don't know exactly what it is, but there are some, there are quite a few studies that point to certain factors that may be influential in the development of this kind of these obsessive compulsive thoughts and tendencies. There hasn't been nearly enough research done, Christina. So we've seen quite a bit of research into postpartum psychosis, a fair bit into postpartum depression, but there's just very little into postpartum OCD or PPOCD or prepartum OCD. So the theories that currently that have been actually mooted in studies recently are that oxytocin may play a part. So oxytocin is a chemical that becomes elevated just before birth and then after, and it's to do with bonding with the baby, and they are wondering whether elevated levels of oxytocin are causing obsessive compulsive symptoms. They're also wondering whether the hormones, so obviously the hormones pre-childbirth and post-childbirth are quite unbalanced, and again they're elevated, but they actually fall. So estrogen and progesterone tend to fall off just after childbirth, and they're wondering whether they interfere with the serotonin pathways. So that's one theory. And then another one that's quite interesting is some studies have placed obsessive compulsive symptoms within the major depression symptoms. So they think that OCD, postpartum or prepartum, falls within the depression spectrum. And I'm sure you've heard of postpartum depression. And there is a correlation in the numbers in the studies, because what we've seen is that over 40% of women with postpartum depression develop obsessive compulsive symptoms. So it needs a lot more work. We don't know exactly, but we know it's nothing that the mom or the partner or the dad has done.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for sharing that research that's out right now. And I think it speaks also to when people ask, well, how did I get OCD? Why do I have OCD? And similarly, we know that there definitely is a biological component, but there's also environmental components. There's a genetic feature. So it's just understanding that all of those aspects from what we know now play a role. And also with what we're talking about right now, that you may also have some kind of precursors with anxiety or have that predisposition. And then now with the child, with all the hormonal changes that can also trigger and elevate things. So, do you find it valuable to spend an exorbitant amount of time on that topic, or do you kind of help your clients recognize that maybe let's spend a little more time in learning how to have a new relationship with these, intrusive fears and images and thoughts and the compulsive behaviors, so that we can help you, unlock a little bit from this?
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, you're totally right, Christina. It's very seductive, isn't it, to focus on the problem, and people want to know why, especially if you've got OCD tendencies. The why becomes an imperative, but we try and move them very, very gently into the solution. So what do we do about this? And actually, there's some overlap there, because as you say, the model for any type of OCD is likely to be biopsychosocial. There's a bio component, there's a psycho component, which is where we come in with therapy, and then there's an environmental component. And definitely some of the studies have said that yes, there seem to be biological factors, but fatigue, low mood, maternal sleep, they are playing a part. So, we obviously, like you, we focus on the therapy, but we do also tell our clients, sleep is important, good diet is important, taking care of yourself, all those things are important. And also an area where you and I don't really work, but, there's the medication aspect as well, and to chat with their doctors about how that might help. So, the solution isn't a one-all solution. There may be a number of solutions within the kind of package, but some of them come under our remit, don't they? And ours is the therapy. And all the studies have pointed to cognitive behavioral work playing a very important role in the solution.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Which leads me to my last question, which is for anybody listening today and now, what would be one tip that you can give us within this specific topic? One tip for a mom to take, one tip that, somebody listening right now who's dealing with this presentation of OCD, what's something that you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think what's most important here to say to mums, apart from it's not your fault, is to say, you are not your thoughts. And these are just thoughts. And obviously you're feeling, and the feelings, even though they feel very strong, they're likely to be chemically induced and they're nothing to do with, they're not a good indication of what's really going on. So I sit down, with my clients, first of all, and say, I know it's very compelling to listen to the thoughts and to carry out your compulsions, but I want to tell you now, number one, we can work with this. There is a solution. There is hope. It isn't like this forever. Number two, you are not your thoughts. Those dreadful things in your head, those pesky, annoying, highly distressing things that keep coming up time and time again, they don't mean anything, and you are not your thoughts. And I think that's the one thing that I would like to say to people early on, and we do, that resonates most, because the implication that I'm a bad mom or a bad person is a theme that runs throughout. And we just like to reassure them that your thoughts are no indication of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you just said something that I know people might go, wait, but she said the word reassure. Because reassurance can be a compulsion, right? And it's always fascinating when I do these podcasts, because I know that sometimes when we're talking, we might have an understanding, but somebody listening might not fully grasp that when we're saying that we're not meaning reassurance in a compulsive way, but more for education to start to learn how to separate yourself from your thoughts and realize that you're, like you're saying, your thoughts are not your entire identity. They're thoughts. And we have so many different thoughts throughout the day that come and go. But in OCD, we have certain thoughts that can get really sticky, and that we really prioritize. So it's just learning that difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm talking about a global general reassure you. I'm not talking about reassure you on your specifics, your OCD specifics. We would, of course, never do that. And I just want to reassure them that these are just thoughts. And if they, once we start working on the detail, and we don't work on a lot of detail, but once we try and work with the types of thoughts that are coming up and the behaviors, obviously you would never reassure, of course. That's a good point, Christine.
No, thank you so much. I mean, I know like I said, with these podcasts, I always have to throw in disclaimers and clarify. But thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. And please let us know, how can people find you?
Oh, well, yes, we are online, www.ocdexcellence.com. We are on Instagram under OCD Excellence, as are you, Christina. So they should be able to find us. And, we try and post regularly. We've had a post about postpartum OCD in the last month. So we do cover this topic quite regularly. And so we should. It's important. And I would just like to say, I did a phone in once on a radio station here, Radio 5 Live, and every single caller had developed OCD postpartum.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.